How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the UKnowAdamTsang podcast, where you get to know a little bit more about people, passions, and all things business. Today, I'm sitting with Ashlee Corbin, who is the president of the Kiwanis Club of Statesboro, Georgia.
Yes.
Welcome, Ashlee.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about Kiwanis. For me, the things I know about Kiwanis are really the Kiwanis Fair.
Yeah, everybody knows that.
Everybody knows about the Kiwanis Fair.
Yeah.
And also, there seems to be a rodeo that's floating around. I haven't personally been, but I've heard about it.
Yes. Shame on you.
Shame on me.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yes, we do a rodeo as well in April.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess, my visual and of what I've seen is, I see these really old grandpas, white hair with the yellow jackets.
Yeah,
Do you have a yellow jacket yourself?
I have a yellow jacket. It stays in my closet because I hate it. But we have the polos too. So I usually tend to steer towards the polos, and I've got a couple of like navy blue T-shirts with the Kiwanis logo on it. We can pretty much mix it up how we want to, but those yellow jackets just stand out. So if you need somebody at the fair and they're wearing a yellow jacket, there you go.
So tell me about the Kiwanis Club.
Okay, so the club has been around since the 1960s here in Statesboro, and it started actually at Georgia Southern. There were some meetings happening and discussions, and at that time it was still a men's only club.
Okay.
So there were a group of gentlemen that wanted to bring a Kiwanis Club to Statesboro. Kiwanis Club is actually a part of a much larger organization. So Kiwanis International has been around for 106 years. Actually, yesterday, the 21st, was the 106th anniversary of Kiwanis International.
Wow.
Yeah. It was started in Detroit under a much longer name than the Kiwanis Club.
Okay.
So, and I don't even remember it. But to just show you, that it was a men's club, it had the word brotherhood in it. That sticks out. So, of course, I'm not part of the brotherhood, because I'm female. But back in the 80s, they voted at International Convention to allow women into the club.
Okay.
So I was born in the 80s, telling my age a little bit, but
very nice.
I was born in the 80s, so I just find that really, really neat that that happened around the same time I was born.
That's right.
But yeah, the club started out, and they met at various places in the city at different times. A place called Mrs. Bryant's Kitchen, which is over by off the Blue Mile. Or it was. They met there for a while, and then I don't even remember what year, but they purchased the fairground, the land.
Okay.
And the club actually came together and signed the banknotes.
Wow.
The people
for the land.
Yes, for the land. The club members actually did that, and they used the proceeds from the fair to pay that land off.
So in their mind, was the fair? I have such fond memories of the fair, right? I mean, growing up in Statesboro, I think that it's something that all of us experience.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
the water wheel that has the bottle at the top, where it's like when you're young, you're like, how is this happening?
Yeah.
How is that going on? But what was the fair actually in existence before they purchased the land?
So they actually had, and I'm really not the right person to be talking about all the history, because I know a lot of it, but not the dates and stuff like that. But
it's okay.
They actually had a carnival, not a fair, in downtown Statesboro. And then they were told they couldn't do that anymore. And so they started looking for land, and that's when some of that land became available, and they purchased what they could. And then it's grown over the years. I know that during my tenure at the club, we've purchased land, I want to say twice.
Okay.
So just different, as it becomes available, we try to purchase it. Because we want to be able to expand.
Sure. Expand that specific location or outside of that?
The specific location.
Okay.
Yeah, it gives us more room for our midway. So like in 2018, we actually did a lot of land clearing on the back part of our midway, and that gave us the ability to add 4 new rides to the 2018 fair.
Gotcha.
And so things like that, can I start that over?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In 2019,
Okay.
we actually, were able to add 4 new rides because we had taken out some trees and stuff and expanded. So we were able to grow the fair that year because of the space that we added by removing some trees and clearing some land and stuff like that.
That's very cool. I wanted to touch back on a previous point that we were having. So, the organization originally was established as kind of like a men's club. And then in I guess, the 80s, it was voted that, women can start kind of like coming into the organization. Predominantly right now, is it still very heavily male dominated in that arena? I mean, obviously the president is a female, so
yeah,
it's kind of changing. But what does that look like?
So we have like 115 members right now. It's hard to keep up. We keep adding one and we'll lose one. We'll add one, lose one. But we've actually had an influx of members recently, which is great. But I could probably count the number of females in the club out of the 100 and say 15.
Okay.
So that tells you, it's not very many because I can remember them all. I mean, I can remember most of the members themselves just in general, but there's maybe 15, maybe 20 women in the club. So it's still predominantly male.
Well, it's fantastic that, I mean, you're the face of the organization right now, right? So, like, I think that encourages people to continue to invest in that club.
Yeah.
What is the ultimate purpose of the club? So, obviously, with the Kiwanis Fair, I think we all pay money, like, for the rides. We always get the stamp, right? You can ride all the rides if you get the stamp. What happens to that money after it gets to the Kiwanis Club?
So the Kiwanis International mission statement is that we're an organization changing the world one child and one community at a time. So that is really like our focus is children-based organizations. That's not to say that we don't give to adult-based organizations or just organizations in general in our certain communities, but children are our focus. If we're gonna create an event, if we're gonna create a service project, then we really want it to hit a kid predominant, demographic. But the money that we raise through the fair, through the rodeo, it comes back to us, and we dish it out. I mean, to almost 200 organizations in Bullitt County and surrounding counties. Back last year, of course, we weren't able to have the fair due to COVID, or the rodeo, so that really hit our pockets hard. But in previous years, we've given back, in excess of $100,000 to the community.
That's
and
amazing.
like I said, those surrounding counties.
Amazing.
So and it's not just money. During the fair or during the lead up to the fair, children can request or apply for livestock, for a goat or a lamb or a pig, and they raise those, or chickens even. They raise those animals. They take care of those animals. They fill out like forms to show, we fed them, we vetted them, we did these things, they've had these vaccinations, etc., to show that they're being responsible. So it helps those kids cultivate their responsibilities, and it helps them discipline, right? Yeah. And it helps them to, they have a living, breathing something relying on them.
Sure.
They're and they learn about the animals. They learn how to train them, to show. And I had no idea that showing a pig was so much like, there's certain ways you do it. The goats, you have to like make sure they're like lifting their necks the right way in the ring and these things, and you're like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
But the judges judge them on the way the animals behave, and also on the children's showmanship, on how they interact with that animal. And so we provide those animals to all kids that apply.
That's amazing.
And the animals are free of charge. They're responsible for vetting and feeding and things like that. And then they either have a pet or well, we won't discuss what happens to some of them, but they don't get kept as pets.
Nice.
But it teaches them some responsibility. So we're not directly involved in that. We give them the animals to jumpstart that process.
Yeah.
But
That's great. I mean, doing that for the community, I think, is huge. I love the mission statement for the Kiwanis, the Kiwanis Club, and it's I think it's so important to invest in the future, because, those kids, those experiences, I mean, we don't grow up on farms anymore, right?
Right.
And so like
Yeah.
being able to give that experience to a child, I think is very precious. So I've actually never been to a rodeo before. Can you tell me a little bit about the Kiwanis Rodeo?
Yeah, so the Kiwanis Rodeo is typically held in April of every year. So the 2020 rodeo would have been our 10th annual, but of course, COVID. So we're just saying that the 2021 one will be the 10th annual.
Nice.
We are hoping to be able to have it in April, but it may get postponed, depending on everything, which is really, really sad, but it happens. We want to do what's best for the community, safety-wise with COVID, and for us, because we do have a lot of older members that, are more in that higher risk category. So we don't want to put them at any risk. But anyway, so the rodeo itself was created to start with to fulfill a pledge that we made to the Eliminate Project, which was a partnership between UNICEF, or I should say, is a partnership between UNICEF and Kiwanis International to help eradicate maternal and neonatal tetanus in third world countries. So because they don't get enough iodine in their water, in their they don't really, I guess, use iodized salt, then they don't really get that necessary nutrient. And so the partnership was created to help get those vaccinations, or those shots, I guess, to those countries, and to be able to help save lives by because a lot of times the babies would die from it, or the mothers after childbirth.
Sad.
And, so we partnered with Kiwanis International. Each club made a pledge, and I don't remember the dollar amount of our pledge, but the rodeo was created to sort of satisfy those pledges. And so we started giving that money back to that, and we've satisfied that pledge a little earlier than they had anticipated, because we were making such good money with the rodeo in those first few years. And so now it goes into our coffers to be able to give it back to the community. So it could go to, dollars raised at the rodeo or the fair could go anywhere from hospice to the Boys and Girls Club, or, American Red Cross, to the Sheriff's Department for, ballistic vests, or whatever they might have, whatever needs they might have, that they reach out to us.
Yeah. Let me kind of ask a question, because obviously, there's a great cause behind the Kiwanis Club. Let me ask you about this. What has been one of the stories that's kind of stuck with you, through your period of time that you've been here?
Yes. So when I first started working at the Statesboro Herald, they told me, they were like, Ashlee, we need you to join the Kiwanis Club. We always put our sales rep that covers that ad territory in the club, and we'll pay your dues, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I grew up here. I'd
Sure.
seen the stereotypical Kiwanian.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not one of those.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think I was going to fit in.
Yeah.
And I felt like, organizations like Kiwanis probably wanted your pocketbook. They wanted you to be able to donate, to give money. I didn't realize that Kiwanis was a service-based organization. We work to raise the money that we give back, instead of us giving the money to the club to give back. So I think that that's a very big, difference in our organization versus some other sort of civic organizations. So one of my first meetings at the club, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so boring. I'm not coming back. I'll come once a month so I know what's happening, and I'm going to do the bare minimum. I'm going to show my face, make sure they know who I am, and that's it. And then during that meeting, they were giving out checks. And former Sheriff Lynn Anderson actually came out to accept a check from the Law Enforcement Committee. and the check was for the Child ID Project, which you said you grew up around here.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you remember, but the Child ID Project was basically, it was like a little mini driver's license for kids. And your parents were to keep them in their wallet. So if you got lost or, you know, whatever, they could show. And it had like your age, your date of birth, like, you know, a description, brown hair, blue eyes, you know, and your name. And it was a way for them to help if there was an abduction or whatever. And it was a free program. So they would set up at like festivals or, you know, things like that around town. Or I think they came to our school one year when I was in school. And so we gave a check to Sheriff Anderson for that. And he was like, you know, if it wasn't for Kiwanis, we wouldn't be able to do this project. You know, you guys are the ones that fund this. And so we really appreciate this because this is a great program. And I got chill bumps. And I still get chill bumps, you know, talking about that because it was something that I had participated in. And it was something that I was like, oh, this is really cool. And if we didn't do this, it would go away.
Sure.
Like that's sort of like, you know, I don't know. It's touching. It's inspiring.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, maybe I'll do a little more. And now I'm president. and the thing about being president is you don't just get to be president.
Sure.
So like my road to the presidency, you know, actually I started as a board member several years ago, and I served on the board, and then I was asked to be vice president. So when you become vice president, you know that you're headed to president.
Yeah.
So you start as vice president, and vice president is really one of the years you really work because you're responsible for scheduling all the speakers that come to our club.
Okay.
You schedule the anniversary party and plan it, decorate all of it, and the Christmas party. So you've got two major events that you know, club events that you help with.
So whoever got the COVID year kind of lucked out, right?
Right. I'm so jealous, so jealous. And so so then you get that, and then in your president-elect year, which is the next step, then it's sort of like you coast. You're supposed to observe and like, you know, so I got the laid back year during COVID year, you know, last year. So I didn't have to do anything anyway, but I had to work my butt off during, you know, vice presidency to schedule all these speakers and stuff. And now I say that last year's vice president is a good friend of mine, and he's president-elect this year, and he still scheduled speakers, but he had to make sure they were tech savvy enough to be on Zoom.
That's right.
Because we did a lot of our meetings via Zoom last year.
That's right.
But then during presidency, you know, then the next step is the presidency. So our years run October to September.
Okay.
So I took over in October, and so yeah, presidency is like, I can see why nobody does it twice. I'll say that. Like I asked one of our older Kiwanians, and by I don't mean older age-wise, I mean like, you know, experienced Kiwanians. There you go. And I was like, "Wow, has anybody ever repeated a presidency?" And he was like, "I mean, I guess you could, but no one ever does."
Yeah.
And he was like, "This was like my second week as president." He was like, "You don't know why yet, but you will." And now, you know, 3-4 months in, I know why. I absolutely know why. Nobody repeats it.
So this year as president, what are your goals and objectives?
So one of the things that I keep pushing our club to do is, like I said earlier, we've given back in excess of $100,000 in years past. But with no rodeo, with no fair, we had no income. So we cut our budget severely. And by cutting that budget severely, it affected a lot of organizations in town as well that need those dollars.
Domino effect.
Right, exactly. But they might not need the dollars. They might just need the help.
Sure.
And so, can we do a blanket drive? Can we go read to kids?
Yep.
Can we serve a meal? Can we help load cars at the Second Harvest food drops that have been happening in town? And the answer, I think, is yes. We don't have to sign a check to give back.
Sure.
That is one of the things. That's one of the things I liked about Kiwanis. I didn't have to write a check to feel like I was doing my part.
Sure.
I just have to go out there and run a cash register at the pancake house, or put some pancakes on a plate, or, do things like that, or be the social media person for the club. That's work. Some people like to go out and cut grass every weekend, or, do a lot of the manual labor. I prefer not to do the manual labor, but I'm good at social media.
Yeah.
I'm good at the marketing part. So I do that, and I do it from sort of behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
So that's one of my goals, is for us to really serve in ways that don't involve money.
Yeah.
But also for us to get to sort of bust that stigma of the fact that it's an older men's club.
Yeah.
We've touched on, the women in the club. I'm only the 5th president that's been female.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's because the ones in the past have not wanted to be leaders, or if they, we have a lot of members in the club that are work at Georgia Southern. So it may be that they worked at Georgia Southern for a few years and couldn't commit their time to being president, or to being really involved, and that's fine. But I want to make sure that the club is that the club fills out with more younger people, with more women. We need that. We really need the people that can help us, do things like podcasts, or,
Sure.
Videos and things like that, where our marketing is sort of, the marketing world is steering this way. Kiwanis should be steering this way. That's how we'll get new members. That's how we'll get sponsors for these events. That's how we'll get butts in the seats.
Absolutely. So if there were some, obviously this podcast really speaks to the community.
Right.
So for the people that are listening, why should they join the Kiwanis Club?
So the reason that I love the Kiwanis Club is because you see the joy. You see the joy, and when we were Zooming with each other instead of being in person meetings, we were together, but we weren't together. And I said several times, the building isn't Kiwanis, we are Kiwanis.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're together, even if we're not, right next to one another. But I said it, and I didn't really feel it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So every Thursday we meet, and we have lunch, and we have a guest speaker that comes in and talks to us about whatever they have going on. Like we had someone from the Boys and Girls Club, Jen Morris from the Boys and Girls Club this week, and she told us about the programs that they're offering. So, and we support some of those programs. So that helps us know that the money we're raising, the work we're doing and putting in is going further.
That's right.
And so you can only do so much by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can write a check, you can go and read to children, or, donate a jacket to a jacket drive, things like that. But if you could join another group of like-minded people that want to give back as well, and have a larger platform to raise that money, like the fair or the rodeo or our drive-through pancake house that we did
That's right.
back in October, then why wouldn't you?
Sure.
And so it's some of my greatest friends are Kiwanians now.
Mm-hmm.
I went in with the idea that I was going to just sort of keep my head down and not really, not really be involved. And now some of them are my best friends. And, when one of us loses a family member, we reach out, and we have a prayer list weekly. When someone's struggling or having surgery or anything like that, we are really there for each other.
That's right.
We try to be, at least.
That's right.
And of course, like any club, there's some little cliques. Because you again, like-minded people.
Sure.
You sit at a table with the same individuals for 52 weeks out of the year, or 50 weeks out of the year, because we don't meet Thanksgiving and Christmas week. Then you get to create friendships with those people that are stronger than with 100 other people,
That's right. That's right.
And so, I mean, we celebrate when someone has a kid or a grandkid.
So it seems like
things
there's a solid sense of community there.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And so we really band together to do what's needed.
Mm-hmm.
We work together. You know, you might not be on the fair committee, but you know, during that third week of October, or the week of the third Monday is technically how it's figured.
Okay.
You know that's where you're going to be, is the fairgrounds.
That's right.
We need people to take the money in. We need people to work the pass gate, to help out in the livestock barn, to flip pancakes and all these other things.
Sure.
You know, there's so much work that goes into a fair behind the scenes that no one sees.
Yeah.
No one knows about. I mean, we're already planning.
Yeah.
I mean, for October.
That's right.
So luckily, a lot of our work was done last year, you know, and we just were able to push it forward because we didn't have a fair last year, but you really get to know people and get to just really, you know, become a community, a family kind of thing.
That's awesome. So if somebody wanted to join, where would they contact the Kiwanis Club at?
So really and truly, the one thing that I'm not fond of with Kiwanis is that it's invitation only.
Okay.
So but you can get an invitation in all sorts of ways. So a lot of times I'll tell people, message the Facebook page. That's because I manage the Facebook page.
Okay.
So if you message it, you're basically messaging me, and I can tell you, you know, about our meetings and when they are, and I can invite you to come to one. They're every Thursday at noon, but we just ask that people just don't show up.
Sure.
You know, that's mainly the reason for it being invitation only, which is understandable. So you just, you know, come and you visit and see if you like it, and if you do, we can get your application and get the process started of you becoming a member. So it's really pretty straightforward.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, is there anything else you would like to tell the audience while you have them?
Not really that I can think of, other than we'd love to have you. We always need new members. Like I said, we're really hoping that we're able to have the fair and the rodeo this year. So if we are, then of course, you know, rodeo in April, fair in October. Those dates may be a little subject to change. Sure. According to, you know, the way COVID's going. But we appreciate the support everybody gives us, you know, through the rodeo, through the fair. We really want to make sure that people know us and know what we do. Just don't think that the fair just happens.
Sure.
You know, and that's the thing, is like it takes a lot of work.
That's right.
And it takes that work. We pour our heart and our souls into this, and you know, I like to say blood, sweat, and tears, because I've bled on the fairgrounds. I don't know if you're. I've said before, I don't think you're a true Kiwanian if you've not bled on the fairgrounds. But like my first time working out there, I cut my hand. So, but anyways, I feel like if we could get more people out there that are willing to work and to do these things, then it just is only going to make the fair and the rodeo better for everybody else.
Absolutely.
So and that trickles down.
That's right.
That domino effect, like you mentioned, you know. The more money we raise, the more money we can give, the more lives we can affect.
Absolutely. So, you know, from my side, from my end, you know, absolutely so thankful for everything that the Kiwanis Club does, you know, from, you know, the fair, the rodeo, but more importantly, the lives that you guys are touching with everything that you're doing. And I think that's a great thing. But I wanted to thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
It was a blast. I actually learned a lot of kind of like, you know, the insides and outsides of, you know, what the Kiwanis Club is.
So I'll email you an application?
I mean, you can. I'm not sure if I'm going to accept the application, but I'll definitely take a look. But yeah, so absolutely. I would love to take a look at one.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, like I said, you can come and visit us, and even if you don't fill out an application, you can at least come in and see what it's all about.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, and that's our show.
All right. Thank you.